Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm filming my assurance update for Q1. So if you don't know, my word for 2018 is assurance, and I am doing quarterly updates. So it is the end of March now, and so I'm checking in based on my progress or just my journey in general through January, February, and March. And then of course, after the next 3 months, I'll do another update and so on and so forth. So there should be 4 total updates in 2018. If you haven't been following my channel for long, you may not know about Rooted, which was a monthly series that I did last year, and because my word for last year in 2017 was Rooted. So I'll throw a link to that above. I did check in monthly then because Rooted to me meant finding my footing in my community here in this town that we recently moved to. Well, not so recently now, but at the time, it was a little bit more recent. And anyway, I was trying to meet friends and just find my place. And so it was something that was a little bit more specific and easy to check in about. Whereas assurance, if you watch my first video of assurance, which I'll link above, it's a little bit of a broader, more abstract concept. And so checking in monthly doesn't make as much sense. So just to check in over the past 3 months, I do have some notes on my phone that I will reference so that I've been taking throughout those 3 months, so that I can check in with you and let you know what's been going on. As always, I always love to hear how you're doing with your word for the year or your theme for the year. If you've decided to go ahead and choose one, I've seen such power in just having a focus. And obviously it's not the only area of growth that I'm focused on, but it's one specific area that I am mentally checking in with myself on and mentally thinking about quite often. And I think that can be really helpful in terms of personal growth. So let's go ahead and get into assurance Q1. So I'm going to start off with the silliest thing that I'm going to share today, which is that one way that assurance really manifested itself this year was on our trip to Disney World in January. There's this opportunity in the park that's called Epcot, in the Japan Pavilion there, to pick a pearl. And if you have watched, I think I've talked about this like 12 times on this channel, and I know it seems silly, and for someone else who is really comfortable in like a theatrical setting, this is so silly. But to me, I hate being in some, like, feeling like I'm performing or like I'm on stage. Like I can't tell you, I hate it so much. I truly just hate it. And so, but I've always wanted to do this because I wanted to get a pearl out of it. You get to pick an oyster and open it up and see what pearl you get, and then you can get it set. So I got mine set into a necklace. There's like, I've talked about it literally like 10 times on this channel. But you have to go through this whole song and literally this whole song and dance to do it. And I have wanted to do it every single time I've gone to Disney. And every time I chicken out because I'm like, I'm not doing this song and dance. It's way too awkward. Everyone's staring at me. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And every time I go home and regret not doing it because I just think it's really cool and I want to do it. So this past January, I did it, and I remember going in there and being really nervous, and Riley was like, assurance, babe, you can do it. And so I did it, and if you go and watch that vlog, I actually got really emotional afterwards, and it had nothing to do with being in Disney and getting the pearl. It was just, those are the small steps that it takes to have that personal growth in an area. And I saw that with my Rooted series last year too, and just trying to get rooted. It wasn't like doing huge massive things that made the difference. It was small little things like picking a pearl in Disney that added up. And so for me, that was, again, like I said, I realized that that's quite small and insignificant to most people. For me personally, I know that it's silly, but it was a small moment where I realized that I really can grow in this area, and I really can overcome fears that I have, that I might always have, and in moments I can choose to overcome them. So picking a pearl was a great way to, it was the beginning of the year, it was a fun way to kick off this whole assurance thing, and Riley totally said that to me in the moment. He was like, assurance, and I was like, okay, now I have to do it. So that was that, picking a pearl. In this first quarter of 2018, I have been doing a Bible study with the women at my church, and we've been getting together every Sunday night here at my house, and I'm not the leader of this study. My friend Jenny, who is the pastor's wife at our church, is the leader of the study. But we've all been meeting here every Sunday, and we just wrapped it up this past Sunday. So it was a 9 or a 10-week study. And the study that we were doing is this one. It's called Healed and Set Free, and it's by Tammy Brown. And to encapsulate this study, it says God can't change, or God doesn't change the past, but he can change the meaning of the past. And so throughout this book, there are chapters on, very specific chapters, like on eating disorders, on child abuse and molestation, on divorce, things like that. And then there are more general chapters on painful relationships from the past, or painful events from the past, things like that. And it is intensive. This is not lighthearted. This is not easy to go through. It's just really powerful though. And so we have completed this, and going through this and really working through some of this stuff that's like in the junk drawer of your heart, and really that you just like suppress down and don't want to deal with because it's easier to just pretend that it doesn't exist, has been so life-changing for me and so helpful to me. And in particular, there's one particular area of my life that had been so difficult for so long, and I just felt such a release and such freedom over that area of my life, and such a lightness over the heaviness that had once been there. And this study was the facilitator for that. Of course, the Lord is the one who was, you know, doing this with me, but this study was really, really powerful. So I will put a link below if this is something you're interested in doing. You obviously could do it with other friends or in a small group Bible study setting, but you could totally do it on your own if you would be interested in doing that. And I've done it, so if you want to email me about it, or like DM me on Instagram about it, I'd be happy to talk to you. I know that there's a few of you who have started it based on my recommendation, but it's really powerful. It's hard to go through, and sometimes painful to like stir up past pain and past hurt that you never really dealt with. But in the end, I think it can be really helpful. And so anyway, that has all tied into assurance of when your spirit feels free and your heart feels free and you have like a clear mind, I feel that you're so much, for me, I'm so much more able to move forward with confidence and assurance and joy in my heart, because I'm not, when I'm facing difficulties in my day-to-day life, they're not being muddled by difficulties that happened 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. You know what I mean? And so just feeling that freedom over those areas and being able to move forward was super powerful. So I do recommend that study, but just to share in this video, it really helped me in this assurance journey. And I'm really thankful that we went through it together as a church. Another point I want to talk on is that I had 2 back-to-back house guests. So I had my friend Grady come for about a week to Texas from New Hampshire, and she and I met online actually about 2 years ago, and we have communicated a whole bunch online and become very close friends online. We call each other like our online BFFs, but we had never met in person. And so I think it took a lot of assurance on both of our parts to like pull our courage up and meet. We ended up getting along great. We had so much fun. It was such an easy, it was like we had known each other our whole lives. But when you're going to meet someone that you've never met, it's intimidating. Like we were joking, we were like, it's kind of like a first date, like, you know. And so that was one piece of just both of us definitely putting on our courage and just being like, okay, we're just gonna see how this goes. It might be really awkward. Like we might not get along that well. We had a strong inclination we would, because we've talked so much, but you know what I'm saying? Online life is different than real life, and sometimes there's a disconnect, and luckily there wasn't, but it definitely took some, okay, here we go, we're gonna spend a week together and like see what happens. So I'm so glad that we did. It was like truly the best week. It was so much fun, but it definitely took some self-assurance on both of our parts to kind of move forward with that, because it can be a little bit anxiety inducing for her coming all the way across the country to someone who she's never been to my house and we've never spent time together in person, and for me trying to like host and like wanting to make sure that she feels really comfortable, like it's just like and so anyway, so that was one piece of assurance with regards to house guests. Well, right after Grady left, I had one down day, and then the next day I had family friends coming in town for the rest of the week, and that trip was planned pretty short before my family friends arrived, and so it wasn't like I had months to prepare mentally. And so because of that, I didn't really have content scheduled for my blog or YouTube channel, which I almost always do. Like I post every Monday, Wednesday, or Friday on either my blog or on here on YouTube, and I don't like to miss that. And so when they were coming, I just really wanted to spend time with them and just hang out with them and enjoy them being here. But because it was a slightly last minute trip, I didn't have content already created. And so for me, being so achievement oriented and so driven by like success and like doing things correctly, it was actually a really big deal for me to just say, I'm just not going to post this week. Like while they're here, I'm not going to post. I'm going to enjoy my time with them. And that's that, you know. Some people aren't going to like it. And I got some crazy messages from people like, you really need to post more. I'm like, it's been 3 missed posts. Like, we're all gonna be okay. But that's exactly my fear, is that people are gonna like freak out, which is, they have to deal with that on their own. They might need to be healed and set free from having those expectations on people they don't even know. But that's a whole other conversation. But for me to just be like, you know what, I can't do this right now. It's way too much. And I also just want to spend time with my family, friends. So, oh well, it's just gonna be a week of not having that. That is like a big thing for me, to be able to do that. And those of you who are also really achievement oriented, maybe more type A type of personalities, probably understand that, where it's hard to just say, okay, I'm just kind of choosing failure this week. Like, but I'm choosing failure so that I can choose something much, much better. So I can't post any content and further that, but I'm gonna spend time with people I love. You know what I'm saying? So it ends up being so beautiful and so great. I'm really glad that that's the way that it worked out. But it definitely is a sign of growth, because I do not like, I will miss a post here or there, but missing a whole week is very, very rare for me. And so I'm becoming more assured. I can do what I can do. And if people get upset about what I can't do, I'm really sorry. I can't do anything about that. Another area where I have seen some breakthrough on the assurance front is with regards to an upcoming conference that I was invited to go to. So if you don't know, when I lived in Austin, Texas, I worked at a big church and I was the preschool director. And so I was over 12 classrooms, 3 services, hundreds of volunteers, and that was my full-time job, was all the different things that go along with that area, and Sunday mornings and events and activities throughout the week, and caring for the volunteers and all of that. So that's my background of experience. And so because of that, my pastor and his wife here in town asked me to be the leader over the children's ministry at our church. And I was very just humbled by them asking me to do that, because I'm literally the only person at church who does not have children. If you've watched my Rooted series, then you know everyone at church has kids, and so it's a little bit funny that I'm the one that's over the children's area, but I have the experience to draw from, and I might even have a little bit more time than some of the moms who are very, very busy. And by I definitely do have more time. And so anyway, I'm really excited about that. But there is an upcoming conference here in just about a month for church leaders, and I am very well versed at church conferences. When I worked at the church, we went to many, many conferences, and then even before that, when I worked in a tech startup in the marketing department, I went to several conferences when I worked there, and so I've been to quite a few conferences. And here's what I know about conferences. Although they can be really helpful for networking and they can be great for learning new information and new skills, they exhaust me like none other. There is nothing that makes me more tired and more exhausted than a conference. And I remember all those different conferences that I went to throughout both of those jobs. Usually they were about 3 or 4 days long, and I would come home and it would literally take me 1 full week, at least 7 days, to feel physically and mentally recovered from that conference. I'm an introvert, and being around people and just high energy and trying to absorb information and converse with people and eat with people and be around people, and just, it's so overwhelming to me. It is so overwhelming to me. It is not the way that I learn best. It's just like a bombarding of information with very little time for me to process it on my own. And if you have been to conferences, then you know what I'm talking about. They can be really great. They're not bad, but they're a lot. So I got invited to this conference in just about a month here, and I looked at the schedule and I looked at what's on my plate outside of volunteering for this position at church, and I just have a lot going on right now. We had 2 house guests back to back that just came and went, and we have several more house guests coming this spring in a few more weeks. One of them is my sister and her husband, and they're coming the weekend after this conference weekend. And I just have a lot going on with Etsy. My Etsy shop is growing a lot, which is so awesome, but a lot of time and energy. And I have lots of mentees right now there's a lot going on, and I am unable at this point to pour all of my energy into this one thing and go to a conference that's gonna like literally, I just know it's gonna zap me, because conferences always do. But I know, I recognize the value of a conference, and I recognize the value of collaboration and networking and those kinds of things. So I looked at the schedule and I thought and prayed about it, and I decided that the best course of action for me would be to go for half of the conference, because the second half of the conference was a little bit more, well, I don't need to get into all the details of it. Basically, I feel that I would learn the most and get the most out of it by going to the first half of the conference. So I sat down with my friend Jenny, who is the pastor's wife, who is like the, you know, co-leader of the church, and oversees quite a lot. And that's a hard conversation for me to have, because I'm a people pleaser and I just want to be like, yeah, I'll be at the conference with bells on. You know, that's what I want to do, and that's what I would have done a year or two ago. But I'm trying to work on just being more real. And so I sat down with her and I said, here's the deal. I am so willing to go to this conference. I want to learn. I want to be there and do these things for our church. However, conferences are the most exhausting thing on the planet to me, and I cannot go for the full amount of time. I cannot. So I have already booked my hotel, and I'm going to go for the first half, and I really look forward to learning what I can learn during that first half. And the second half, I am going to have to bail out on and come home, because I don't have the bandwidth right now to pour all of my energy reserves and mental capacity into this conference. And it turns out that Jenny was super supportive of it, and she was like, actually, I think that's great, because that first half is what's you're really gonna learn the most anyway. So it ended up being okay. But it's a big deal if you're a people pleaser like I have been for most of my life, to have the courage to draw a boundary, basically, and say, listen, I will come and I want to help out and I want to learn, but I can't do the whole thing. And I'm a very all or nothing, black and white kind of person, so learning how to draw those boundaries that are a little bit more jagged in those gray areas is really challenging for me. And this was a big win for me, of guarding my time and guarding my energy and saying, I want to be there and I want to help, but I don't feel that desire necessitates me being there for the whole conference and zapping my energy. So anyway, that's the story of the conference that I'm going to next week, or next month. I really am looking forward to it, and I think I'll learn a lot. And I'm really looking forward to not being completely drained for a complete week, maybe just like a couple of days. So I saved the most difficult piece of the past 3 months for last, which is, and has been for the past several years now, friendships. So we have been in North Texas for 2 years and 8 months about. So that's as long as I've not lived in Austin, and we have been in our house here for about 2 years. And so the other 8 months we lived in a little apartment right when we first got married. So it's coming up on 3 years. Mid-July will be 3 years that I have lived up here and been on this journey. And it has been, these years, if you've watched Rooted, you already know, have been so challenging and so difficult. Just so challenging. And so I want to talk about friendships today a little bit more. I've definitely talked about them some in Rooted. It has continued to be deeply challenging, very deeply challenging. And so basically at the end of last year, I was feeling really good about having I had 2 really solid close friends, and I was really thankful for them. And I've never been the kind of person who has friends a mile wide and an inch deep. I've always been the kind of person who has friends an inch wide and a mile deep, meaning that I've always kept a very close inner circle that I'm very close with, and it doesn't matter to me about having lots of friends. I just need a few close friends. And one of those friends moved away very suddenly in January, and that was very shocking and really challenging, just to see like 50% of my friends leaving. I was like, oh, okay. And since then there have been a couple of people who have, you know, visited our church or whatever, that I've thought, oh, that they would be, you know, whatever. And then they've left or they've moved and that kind of thing. And so I really am left with often feeling like I'm in a crowded room, but completely alone. And I know that some of you can really relate to that, because we've emailed and talked, and I know that you understand that feeling. It is so challenging. like we do the women's Bible study together, and I have met people in different facets and different arenas and things like that. And it's not that I dislike anyone, it's just that there's a difference between being friendly with someone and being close friends with someone. And I just feel like mostly everyone in my life I'm just really friendly with, and have tried to go deeper or just develop that friendship, and sometimes you just don't click. And that's really hard, because sometimes no amount of effort, there are friends that you're like heart friends, and you just mesh and you just are bonded. And there are some people who, as lovely as they are or as lovely as you are, you just don't have that connection. Like, you just don't click like that. And like I said, no amount of effort changes that. Like, you can get to know each other more, but I think that most of you are probably nodding, saying like, yes, I know what you mean. So I'm not gonna continue to explain that, because I think we can all understand, like, it's just like dating without the romantic element. But like, you can go out with someone who, you know, a really great guy who you know, he's really great, and on paper he looks great, but you don't click and you're not going to date. And I understand that friendships and dating are very different, but it's the same sort of situation where you can really like each other and you can go do things together sometimes, but that's just different than being very close friends. And that has been the piece that is just, y'all, it is just so hard. It's so hard. The past few days or the past week, I've really struggled. It's, you know, I said at the end of the Rooted series, like, as grateful as I am, how far I've come over the course of this year, I know this journey isn't over. And that has really kind of come back into play the past couple of weeks or so, where I've just struggled so much with not having those friendships. And it's just hard. It's just lonely, and it's so hard. And I'm so grateful. I have my one friend who I'm just really close with, and I love her so much. But she's really busy, and she has 3 kids, and we see each other quite a lot, and we talk quite a lot. But that's why people have a few friends, you know. And she's also really rooted here. Like, her whole family's, you know, around, and all these things. And so it's just a very different kind of dynamic. And so if you have any extra prayers and you want to pray that I could meet some friends, I would greatly appreciate it, because I started out this year feeling really positive about kind of where my friendships were and that kind of thing, and have kind of backslidden some, and I'm just feeling just in a really challenging place. Definitely have shed some tears over the past few days, just thinking about how I just feel like I'm missing out on. I'm gonna start crying. Welcome to my Word for the Year series. If you've never watched them, like, I cried all the time in Rooted, and I'm sure I'll cry throughout this, because there are just some things in life that are hard. I just feel like I'm missing out so much on specifically my life in Austin, because when I moved to Austin, so I grew up in Maryland, and I loved growing up in Maryland, but I always knew I was not going to live in Maryland. I just always had a sense that that was not where I was meant to be. And so when I went off to college in North Carolina, and then I moved to Texas, and I got planted in Austin, that is where I felt like I was meant to be. And please do not comment. Please do not comment and say, why don't you just move back? You can go watch all of my Rooted videos and hear more about that. We're not moving right now. It's not an option right now. It is not an option right now. And it's really hard to read comments like that, because I'm like, yeah, I wish we could, like, please. Anyway, I thought I would live there forever. I really thought that I would get married there. I would raise my babies there. I would, like, work and live there. Like, I just loved that city. It felt like home in a way that no other place ever felt like home. Again, of course, Maryland feels like home because it's my hometown. It's where I grew up. But it felt like home to me as an adult, as an independent adult from my family. And I made friends there that felt, I should say, which is really the piece of this that's so hard, like my brothers and sisters, and we were just so close. And since I've moved, like, some of, you know, one of my closest friends there had her first baby. Another one I was really close with, she and her husband was one of my very best friends in Austin. He officiated our wedding, and they had their first baby. And then one of my best friends, very best friends in Austin last week, called me that she got engaged. And here we go. And as far as I've come, in mourning my life in Austin, and that no longer exists, and moving on from that, because I can't live my life in the past just constantly in mourning for this life. But in those moments, like when those babies are born or when my friend got engaged, it is like there is a physical feeling of grief that I'm not there. And of course it's, it's a 5 or 6 hour drive. Well, it's supposed to be 4 hours, but there's always construction, so it's always a 5 or 6 hour drive. It's not like, we're not talking about we're 50 hours away, but it's an event. Like, it's not like a pop down for an afternoon. And there's literally a physical feeling of grief in those moments, because I just want to be there. And like, I just want to visit my friends and their babies in the hospital, and I just want to sit with my friend and like she did for me, and dream about her wedding and plan her wedding with her. And of course it's 2018, so of course there's technology that facilitates that, but unless you've moved, which there have been people who have not, who have sent me lots of comments about this, no matter what anyone says, there is a huge, massive, huge difference between being a day-to-day friend, like I was with those people that I'm talking about, and being long-distance friends. There is a huge, huge difference. And so as much as I can FaceTime with them and talk to them, it's not the same. It's not the same as going and having dinner on a Tuesday night together, or going and getting frozen yogurt after church together, or going and sitting like I did with my friend who just got engaged every Thursday night, and just sitting and drinking tea and talking about everything. And I just can imagine us talking about this wedding and just how excited I am for her, and just like all of that. Like, those moments make up a friendship much more than a phone call. And that's the hard reality of it. And that's something that I think that people who have never moved and had to restart, like, and have a new life can't understand. And they'll just say, like, why don't you just call your friends more? It's just not the same. It's just not the same. I wish it was the same. It's just not. So things like that, I mean, there have been a lot more than just those 3 things, but things like that are still so hard, because I just want to be there. And as much as I have seriously and truly, there's been such big changes, and I've made such strides in feeling more rooted here in Gainesville, I don't have that like closeness with people here, like at all, like how I did there. And I don't want to keep carrying on because I'm just going to keep crying, but I miss that more than I can say. I miss that so much more than I can say. So I'm trying to continue to be positive about finding friends here. But as you can imagine, it's been about 2 years and 8 months. And it's really very challenging to sometimes believe that there are close friends for me here, because it's been literally almost 3 years without that. And I just miss it so deeply. I just miss it so deeply. And so someday there's still, like you can see, there's like, when I really think and talk about it, there's still such grief. There's just still, it's just such grief. And I think there might be that for, that might not dissipate anytime soon. But I think what makes that even more difficult is that that whole of community is still so unfilled in a lot of ways. And like I said, it's a lot of feeling like I'm alone in a crowded room, kind of. Like, it's not like I'm not around people, which I am thankful that I get to be around people, but it's that lack of feeling that like heart connection like I had with so many of my friends in college, growing up in Austin, in every other stage of life. And anyway, I've said enough about this, but how this weaves into this video is like, I definitely lack the assurance and the faith often lately that there are people for me here. In other realms, I can see why we're here. And I can see that, but I just don't think that life is really that much worth living without friends and community around. I just don't see a lot of value in doing life alone. I really see a lot of value in being in community with other people, and so not having that has been deeply, deeply challenging. I'll leave it at that. I could probably film 20 hours talking about friendships and loneliness, because it has been a very humbling and difficult experience over the past couple of years. So I would really appreciate, like I said earlier, if you choose to leave a comment, that if you would just be really sensitive to that. Anyway, so that is my Assurance Q1 update. As you can see, there has been some really good breakthrough and some really good steps forward, and I think that I've definitely felt like there's been some forward movement. But with regards to friendships, which have easily been the most challenging part of this whole journey over the past, 2 years, 8 months, there's just still so much struggle. There's still so much struggle. And it's just still really hard. So again, like I always say, like, I'm not throwing a pity party. I'm sharing because I know I'm not the only one. And I just want you to know that you're not alone. If you feel how I feel, you're not alone. And I know I'm not alone because many of you have commented or reached out to me in various ways that you feel the same way. So I really appreciate you watching and hearing my thoughts on the first 3 months of 2018 with regards to assurance and working on that. I would love if you have chosen a word for 2018 or some kind of theme or area of personal growth, if you would share that with me in the comments below and let me know where you are with that and how that's going for you and what you've learned and all of those kinds of things. I just would love to hear how your journey is going and how the beginning of your year is going. And I would also love to hear if you have had the same kind of thing where you've moved somewhere and you've just grieved your friendships and relationships of the place you lived before and just have had a hard time moving forward with your reality being so different than it had been in the past, and just that grief process. Anyway, I really do appreciate you watching this. I'm sorry for the overly emotional moments. There will always be some in these kinds of videos, I think. But I hope you guys are having an awesome day whenever you're watching this, and be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. You can check out my Whole Rooted series is on a playlist. This Assurance series is on a playlist. This is the second video in the series. The first one was explaining my word for the year, and there will be several more as we continue to roll through 2018. Thank y'all for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.